Thank you, pleasant voice lady. Are you ready, AJ?
Yes, hopefully my voice is more pleasant because we are recording.
I am going to call the work session of the Springfield City Council to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon.
Here.
Councilors Pitts.
Here.
Moe.
Here.
Rodley.
Here.
Stair.
Here.
Woodrow.
Here.
And Pictionary.
I'm here.
All right. We have two items tonight: the fire code ordinance with Roy Emery, and then the CDBG draft fund allocation. Roy, do you want to start us off?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Roy Emery, and I'm the interim fire marshal for Eugene Springfield Fire. And I'm here to request a public hearing and first reading for the new proposed Springfield Fire Code. The state adopted, the fire code adopted by the city must be consistent with the state fire protection statutes and the state fire code. And so the code adopted by the city can be equal to or more stringent than the code adopted by the state. The state recently adopted a new fire code in 2019 from the 2018 International Fire Code. So we're a little behind the curve with this code here. Adoption of this code will enable Eugene Springfield Fire to provide a high level of fire safety protection within the city. Examples of additions to the new fire code are language addressing plant extraction systems, laboratories and higher education, mobile food preparation units, capacitor energy systems, and large assembly gatherings. The proposed ordinance will take effect July 1st and helps Springfield Fire Code to be compliant with the state fire code, like I said, with amendments which became effective in November of 2019. I didn't prepare a lengthy preparation, just will entertain any questions you have. My assumption was this is a pretty regular process that occurs every 3 to 5 years for the code process. Since we were late with this process, there's going to be another fire code coming down the road in 2022, 2023 also.
Steve.
Do we have any additions that are local to the fire code that are different than the fire code?
The additions are Springfield specific language in the fire code.
Yeah.
Yes, there are. Those were included with the attachment in the information packet.
Okay. I have read it, but I didn't pick that part up.
Yeah. Well, you didn't have the mark because I'm new. You didn't have the marked up copy that I had that said this is specific to Springfield.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know. But
okay.
But I don't want to take your time now, of course. But maybe you can get something like that to me.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so it sounds like we're good to roll this one over to the public hearing so we can do doing the first reading. I think it's on the schedule in 2 weeks. So we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Aaron Fifield is next with draft CDBG allocations.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Hello.
I
said hello.
Oh, hi. So as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also referred to as the CARES Act, the city has been allocated an additional $366,652 to help address community needs. These funds need to go toward projects that are eligible under the Community Development Block Grant Program, the CDBG program, which primarily is to benefit low-income persons in Springfield. Projects also need to show that they had language, quote, prevent, prepare for, or respond to the coronavirus. And the city has about 2.5 years to spend these funds. So in the packet, I've included a list of eligible projects that match the sort of meet the criteria of the CARES Act, So again, both responding to coronavirus, but also needing to be eligible under the CDBG program. The projects on the list, the cost of those projects surpass what's available. And the projects themselves have come from a variety of conversations in the community through the Lane County Human Services Commission, most recently through the CDBG RFP that we did this last spring, some of those unfunded projects that would also qualify under the CARES Act. And then some regional meetings we've had with Lane County staff. You'll see that the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, has been funding homeless outreach. That's expected to end at the end of June. There's an opportunity to continue that project under these funds. So the list is there. And I'll just point out that the CARES Act is just one funding source that we're receiving in the community. There are other funding sources coming to our community, not just to the city. So example, you don't see rent relief as an option. The county itself is receiving about $60 million, and sort of posing that question to them recently to say, this is an eligible source. Is there a need here? And they're like, please no, don't allocate any more right now. They're still trying to figure out how to distribute that. So it's sort of acknowledging there are other needs in the community that you don't see addressed through this list. This is the list of, this is the list of sort of like known and heard projects, but also just want to point out part of this process is a public process. So I'm looking for a draft list of priorities and projects from you tonight, but then that list will go out for public comment. There'll be a public hearing by the Community Development Advisory Committee. And so if there are other needs or questions, ideally that comes through that public process. And then the advisory committee will hold the public hearing, have a discussion, and ultimately make a recommendation of funding to you all. But the final decision will come back to you during regular session at the end of June. So yeah, I'm available for questions.
Cory?
I was eager. I have two somewhat disparate questions. Well, one's a question and one's a comment. One is I have a bias for the work that the Springfield Eugene Tennis Association is doing, and I know we were not able to fund them in the last round, even though we chatted about them, and I know the committee chatted about them. And so I would love to just sort of keep that at the forefront of people's minds, because a lot of their work is directly working with folks who are affected by the pandemic and are having economic challenges. The other thing is, this money could be used for anything that's otherwise CDBG eligible. So one of the things I'm wondering about is down payment assistance. I'm not sure how we would, I mean, I think that we could if we looked at, people who were in precarious housing or people moving people out of rentals into housing. So I'm not sure how to tie that to the pandemic or to COVID relief, but I would love to sort of put that on the shelf too, to think about how could we increase our down payment assistance to actually get people into houses. That's it. Those are my.
Damien?
Hi, good evening. So, I mean, this might sound a little frivolous, and I do agree with a lot of things I agree with everything that Councilor Raleigh said as far as, pretty much taking care of the basic needs of people. But I mean, I think in the last year and a half or so, we've all gone through a lot. And I wonder, could that money be not a large amount, but, a small amount be used for, how can I say this? Something fun that's going to potentially bring the community together so we can get to know each other and celebrate each other and relieve a little stress. I mean, is that even a possibility?
My short answer is no with particular funds. I could do some digging, but yeah, I don't know if Councilor Woodrow wants to add to that.
I'm just thinking, I'm wondering if we could combine it with a service that a program provides. If we had Catholic Community Services and our Oasis program, combine it with a harvest dinner that would then provide food for the families and food for the neighborhood. And then at the same time be a gathering. And maybe we might be able to help fund that outreach. would something like, I mean, that would follow into CDBG money, because it would be a food and clothing outreach and that kind of thing, but it would combine a gathering type. Is that something that you were thinking of, Damien, something like that?
I really wasn't thinking of anything specific, but I honestly really like that deal. I mean, I think that there are a bunch of organizations that are doing some amazing things that benefit the community. And, you know, what if we, yeah, I mean, I that's a fabulous idea.
I think we might be able to work our way around through the side door on those if we work at it.
Damien, did you have anything else? Leonard?
Thanks, Mayor. So I think the biggest quantum leap that we can address here is between the completely unhoused and putting a roof of some description over their heads. Once you've got a roof over your head, then you can worry about getting a better roof over your head. But the two places, the two sources of or goals of revenue that we're considering right now that directly consider the concern the unhoused that I see was Daisy Chain and Whitebird. And so I would give first priority to those if we're triaging the use of these funds. I also heard from Carry It Forward that there is a fairly urgent need for a hospice room for people who are in their last days as a homeless person. And if we could allocate, I know that it's not part of the funding that we're currently considering, but if we could add some funding for a hospice room along with the equipment that would require in one or another of our shelters, then that would be most welcome. That's all I got. Thanks.
Steve?
I've heard that and I support that. That's very important.
So go ahead, Marilee.
I just was curious as to if they had any particular location they were looking at.
Yes, they were looking at the shelter that was recently converted near Mill Street, down near Island Park.
Okay.
And I can't remember the specific address, Marilee, but it's down in that side of town.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So Aaron, do we have in the emergency repair program, how's it doing for money? Because I think that would be another go-to place to sort of keep people housed and respond to the crisis.
Yeah, you know, I think this last year was a good indication. You know, through the CDBG one-year action plan that you approved this in May, we sort of matched the funding for what we projected the need was. So that was, I don't want to say fully funded, but projected to be fully funded. Yeah, I'll add the same sort of question came up, Councilor Rodley, about the down payment assistance program. And so while it wasn't funded in that action plan, it's got previous year's funding available, both on the anyone can apply if they're eligible, but also you funded Square One Village's down payment assistance for that innovative program. But yeah.
So, and then for CDAC, we're gonna essentially kind of give some of these notes to them, let them have a public hearing and then come back with a recommendation. Is that kind of the process? Yeah,
in an ideal world, you come up with some numbers attached to some of these projects that add up to $366,652. And then that gets put out for public comment. And so the public has a plan to comment on.
So one of the questions, I think I am interested in looking at continuing that Whitebird outreach. And again, I more probably without the medical focus level. I think that's something that sort of speaks to where we've got a lot of people that are sort of still sheltering in place, and being able to sort of continue that outreach makes a lot of sense to me. I think I would have questions about CETA before I would agree to fund them. I've seen some of their monthly reports, and what I really can't wrap my head around, and is they sort of come into sort of rental requests and rental support and rental. And if we think of sort of COVID response, really what I would love to see them tie in sort of those requests to actually are they just sort of fielding the questions? Are they providing, you know, case management resources? Are they just that first level of outreach? But like jump from the point of, I understand that they are the first people to get the call and they're essentially running a call center. What I would really love to see that jump from, how do I get from that conversation to sort of stable housing and how they're sort of being case managed from there. And they may not do that, but like before I would agree to fund them, I would want a little bit more information. Yeah, I didn't realize the county was getting 60 million for rental assistance, right? Because that's a huge need and a huge amount of money that goes along with it. Go ahead, Corey.
One of the, and I'm not sure if these have to be previously vetted, but it sounds like since we have a couple of years to spend it, the gaps that I see on this list is nothing that's really tackling like the unhoused youth or youth who are precariously housed. And I think that that's something that maybe it's an opportunity for us to look into, whether it's a partnership with the school district or I don't know what, I'm making it up, but I think that's a place that's kind of missing. And if we have a little time to see how we could support that, that's something that I also would be interested in looking into.
Aaron, did we fund, I thought there was another project and it didn't get funding off of the original CDBG.
Yeah, it was a construction project for downtown, in downtown Eugene by an organization called Youth Era, I forget how they pronounce it. And they were looking for help constructing part of their hostel in the back. I sort of had some outstanding questions to them, costs and timing, and hadn't really heard back. So I can certainly follow up with them. I think it gets a little tricky of, you know, how is something eligible with the CDBG regs in terms of sort of an activity in Eugene, and then part like this would turn into a Davis-Bacon federal wage determination project, which is fine. They just hadn't anticipated those costs when they submitted their proposal. And so there were some like, if that's the case, can you still afford it and what is your need is? And so there's some outstanding questions I would still have on what that is.
Okay, I think maybe if we could select some price, some probably money for Aaron, and then leave a little bit more if we were interested in getting more information, that probably would be helpful.
Sorry, can you repeat that first half?
I said maybe that it would be helpful if we kind of gave you some dollar figures that we were looking at, and then if we left a little bit of money left over, if we're interested in this Youth ERA project, to give you a chance to go back and get some more information about it.
And I'll add, anything you put forward as a draft is just a draft, and it can change drastically after the CDAC holds the public hearing and it comes back to you. So that sounds fine. And I'm happy to share my screen and we can all see numbers too, if that would help too.
That would help.
Yep. Okay. And Leonard, while she's pulling this up, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. I also wanted to put in a good word for Springfield Eugene Tenants Association, as Councilor Rodley did. They've been doing some good work, and I'd like to see some money sent in their direction as well. That's all I've had. Thanks.
So I've heard Whitebird, CETA, the tenant association CETA, not the economic kind. No to, so I think it's Whitebird, CETA, maybe Youth ERA. Did I miss anything else?
Yeah, Daisy Chain for unhoused mothers.
And then if we could try to fit the Fair Housing Council if they're developing training. I don't know that I would support them putting on like I would support them recording the training. We all live in this virtual environment and it's going to have a longer shelf span that way. So maybe if we could see what that all adds up to, Aaron, and go from there.
Oh, yeah. I realized I meant to put this in Excel, not in Word. So real time happening. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm looking at the dollar amounts that we have. So we had Daisy Chain at 56. I'm just gonna take notes. Daisy Chain at 56,000. You said Whitebird, so 177.
Yep.
Put that here. You mentioned CETA. So CETA, there's a range. Is there a number you would like to include?
Why do I remember they asked for 25K originally?
Yeah, I think it was about 13,000 they had asked for originally.
So, okay, so let's start with 13K
Okay.
and see what the,
And then. And I'll say, like, again, the funds can be used for the next 2.5 years. So if we come up short and you would like to have like a 2-year, funding, that's certainly possible. Right, so right now we're at 246. I believe the youth ERA was at ballpark it at 45,000, I believe, is what their construction ask was.
so that would put you at 291.
Yeah, and that is, I missed, it does not include the wage determination rate.
Does the hospice fall in here anywhere?
I don't think I've heard anybody's numbers on the hospice yet. Like, I would love for more information about the hospice, like leave a little bit of space. But I've not heard a number floating around. Leonard?
Yeah, I would love to see just maybe a pilot program, even $15,000-$20,000 devoted to creating a hospice room would be most welcome.
So I guess I have a question on the particulars in terms of what the actual activity that we're paying for is. If it's rent or what it, I don't know that buying equipment is eligible. You can certainly, if you want, you could leave. We don't have to get up to 366,000. You could leave it here, and this kind of gives what you said, like, let's put something out there for people to comment on. There's room to give. If something in the hospice realm comes in through the public comment that sounds like it's eligible and you want to support it, that can certainly be possible. I'll get some responses from some of these others.
That would be great, because I think everything I've seen about it is a phone call saying somebody was interested in it. And if the idea, like, what we're saying is we as a group are interested in if they have to develop an actual project.
And I'll say, like, a lot of these questions are, when we're talking about social services, are really these regional efforts with the county that we're working on. So these can certainly be questions we bring to the Human Services Commission or the Poverty and Homelessness Board to say, we want to develop more of a program for unhoused youth and how we're sort of addressing those needs. So these are an option, certainly CDBG funds, but they're not the end all for the only opportunity to solve some of these issues. But okay, this will be good.
Yeah.
Okay. Is anybody seeing something we're missing or they want to add for we're going to get another shot at adjusting this when we can turn it all on its head in 2 weeks.
Can I add one? I heard, sorry, Fair Housing Council. Did you want me to, I could add that here? Is that, okay. Yep. And that'll do, okay. Okay.
Aaron, it's Leonard again. Is there, I know that equipment is not part of the purview of this funding. Would staffing for the hospice care, I hate to sound like a broken record on this, would that possibly qualify?
Yeah, no, I think staffing is one of those certainly eligible, like the staffing is an eligible use, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Leonard, I think you just have to call, I'm assuming you heard it from Chris because he called me about it, is call him and just ask him to sort of he's got to develop more of an idea.
Sure.
And he knows where to find Aaron.
Yeah, will do.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions before we wrap this up? All right. Erin sounds like she's got what she needs. I appreciate it. We're going to adjourn the work session. We're going to meet. Ooh, I think we're on a different. Are we on a different link, AJ, for CETA?
Yes, you are. And the estimated start time for that is 7:10. So if you would like to take a few minutes for yourselves, then we can meet on the next link.
All right. We'll see you all on the other side. All right. We're adjourned. Take care, guys.